Hello, everybody. How are you? In medicine, we always say that we should celebrate everybody, and that literally means everybody. So, on this episode, let's react to bizarre bodies and love them just as much. Huge thanks to ZocDoc for sponsoring this video. In Kansas City, 28-year-old Justice Collins suffers from a rare sleep condition. Narcolepsy type 1 is a neurological disorder where my brain can't regulate my sleep cycles. That's already a great explanation of what narcolepsy is. I'm glad she pointed out that it's type 1. There are two different subtypes, type 1 and type 2. The real issue within narcolepsy is that there is a neurotransmitter deficiency called orexin. And as a result, you can't manage your sleep-wake cycle that she just described. It's not like you're just sleeping more in a 24-hour period as compared to a regular person. You're actually sleeping the same amount. It's just your sleep is completely dysregulated because that neurotransmitter, or orexin, allows you to stay awake. It keeps you awake. This will cause me to fall asleep without warning. Typical morning for me, 3 o'clock is when my first alarm goes off and get ready to go to the gym. Yeah. So imagine, they can't sleep well at night, but sometimes fall asleep inappropriately during the day. This can happen during boring activities, just being sedentary, and it's obviously extremely disruptive to one's life. Imagine you can't sleep well at night, and during the day, you're falling asleep at all these inappropriate times. I'll head to the gym at around 4, get back to the apartment, take a shower, and then go back to sleep for like my morning nap. I always tell people it's not waking up that's the issue. It's staying up that's the problem. Interestingly, when we make diagnosis for narcolepsy, we do two types of sleep testing. The traditional type of sleep testing and one called multiple sleep latency tests, which basically allows us to see how quickly one can fall asleep after numerous naps progressively throughout the day. And for a regular individual, if you can fall asleep for a nap, the next time that you try and have a nap, it's going to be difficult to begin that nap. That's called sleep latency. So ideally, that period should get longer and longer. But usually, if you have narcolepsy, you can have multiple naps throughout the day where you fall asleep quite quickly. There's no off button, and there's no not having it for a day. I played my day to put myself in the best position to be successful. Earliest that I can think about having an episode is probably second grade. I remember being in class and trying to pop rubber bands on my wrist. I'm trying to eat things, drink, do anything to keep myself awake. This is not an issue of self-control. This is a neurotransmitter, a neuropeptide, because I know everyone loves peptides in the brain. And as a result of, we think, it's autoimmune damage to this neuron that actually creates a orexin, that you have a deficiency in this neurotransmitter, therefore having less ability to control your wakefulness. Interestingly, there are some theories that there's potentially an infectious root cause that begins the autoimmune process to destroy those neurons that could be tied to influenza, the flu, and even strep throat. And I physically could not stay awake, no matter what I did. And I was I think this is normal. And there's also a few other components here. Cataplexy, where there is literally a weakening or giving out of certain muscles on the face, sometimes on the body, during moments of happiness, elation, laughter. There's hallucinations as you're falling asleep. Sleep paralysis, where you're awake, but for a couple of minutes, even though while you're awake, you can't move. It's truly terrifying. Every outing for justice is a risk. In the U.S., it's legal to drive with narcolepsy, but taking to the wheel could have fatal consequences. I'm surprised if you have multiple episodes falling asleep while driving that you can continue to have a driver's license. I feel like there's got to be a neurologic evaluation there. Today, her sister Ava has opted to drive. Within moments, a narcolepsy cycle starts. Had Justice been driving, a catastrophic collision could have occurred. Sometimes I'm able to wake her up and she'll wake up. Sometimes she'll sleep through it. It depends on Justice in her body sometimes. Usually what I tell people is, don't wake her up. Let her be. It's not a big deal. An interesting tidbit about narcolepsy is that when they wake up from these small sleeps, these sleep attacks, if you will, there's a feeling of being well rested, which is unlike if you have, let's say, sleep apnea, where you're having difficulty with your sleep-wake cycles and you have daytime sleepiness and you don't feel well rested when you wake up. But usually from these sleep attacks, you wake up feeling okay. So I can hear what's going on around me. When I was younger, I used to think I had superpowers because I could play back conversations that I was asleep for. It's the trippiest thing. Other people may wonder what's going on. It's funny to see people sleeping out in public, so sometimes that brings some attention. So I just make sure, just to keep her safe, just making sure people respect her and that her episode is not a spectacle. Right. Yeah, you don't want people laughing at your medical condition, especially an invisible medical condition like this, of which there are plenty. But there are medication options that are available for this that certainly play a role. There's certain medications on the horizon that can play a genetic role in this. So there is hope in the future for those who suffer with narcolepsy. There are challenging days where I'm like, this day was shot, my disorder was whooping my butt today. But understanding as a young person that you still can live a functional life, that you still can achieve the things you want to achieve. I think that is the biggest understanding, that you aren't chained in by your disorder. And if the worst thing in my life is that I have to allocate a few extra naps and be a little more cognizant about when I drive, I'll take that. That's a great outlook on a complex condition. Not everyone will feel that way, but this is an example of post-traumatic growth overcoming through a very difficult challenge. Remember, humans are resilient, and our brains are wired to be resilient. So for all this talk about PTSD, and that term is used casually quite often, most people do not suffer PTSD or go into a very dark place when something negative happens to them. They may temporarily, and that's appropriate, but I'm talking about pathologic dark place. And the brain is wired for success. If it happens that you're not having success, that's where medical help, mental health help can come into play. When doing my morning routine, things look a little bit differently for me. For example, I'll sit on the floor to brush my teeth. So when someone has a limb length discrepancy in a scenario like this, it can be traumatic, meaning that they got into an accident, or it could be congenital, that they were born in this way. There are unique scenarios where it's something that is acquired as well, but more commonly falls one and two of those two categories. Teresa Buchholz was born without fully formed arms. So it's some kind of congenital dysplasia or aplasia of the long bone of the arm. Anything I do is definitely centered around my limb difference, because the world is not built for a limb different person, specifically someone missing both their arms. What doctors do know is that exposure to chemicals and viruses can affect an embryo's development in the uterus, causing these life-changing differences to occur. My mom was a physical therapist, so she had one of her friends who was an occupational therapist come to our house. And I remember we were just all sitting in the bathroom, and I was trying to figure out, how am I going to get my pants up? How am I going to get my pants up in public? Just like learning how to do hygiene things was definitely one of my earliest memories. I think hygiene and safety are the two most important things to take into consideration in a scenario like this. Need to be able to stay free of bacteria, of germs, infections, but also be able to care for yourself in case of an emergency, if there's a fire, being able to turn off the stove in a way that she's not going to burn her foot. Little things like that make a big difference that we take for granted every single day. I use this hook. My waistband and my pants is always a little wonky, so I'm going to fix that really quick. I use the hook to get my pants up and down. So people use hooks like this. They use very specific devices to put socks on. There's significant investment being made in creating devices to help those with unique congenital deformities and just variations, anatomical variations. I'm going to text my sister really quickly to see how far away she is. The more you use the neuromuscular pathway, the better control you develop of that neuromuscular pathway. So the control that an individual like myself would have of their toes is drastically different than the control she has, given the fact that she uses her toes for these fine motor movements. Glad you're here. We both have the same limb difference, and it is congenital limb loss, meaning we were both born this way. We're not exactly sure why this happened to us. We were both adopted at pretty young ages. Obviously, being from the same family, genetic is a possibility, but exposure to either, as they said, a virus or perhaps an environmental toxin, medication can be a cause as well. Congenital limb differences have been attributed to chemicals left behind from the Vietnam War, pesticides from farming, or a lack of folic acid in birth mothers' diets. The hardest things are just those daily things like getting dressed, carrying things. Riding was a challenge. Just any daily activity was a struggle for us. Yeah, it requires more planning. It requires assistance, asking for assistance, even when perhaps it's uncomfortable. I think that arms are overrated because people assume that you're incapable. And here I am. I'm capable. I'm in grad school, living my dreams. Oh, local New Yorker. Love to see it. Back to the show in just a second. But first, I want to tell you about my sponsor, ZacDoc, a free website where you can easily search and compare high-quality in-network doctors so you can find the right one for you. The people in this episode dealing with unusual medical conditions can struggle to find the right doctor to suit their needs. I struggle with it too, which is why I'm so happy to partner with ZacDoc, who can help you book in-network appointments with more than 150,000 providers in all 50 states. Trust me, I get it. Just because I'm a doctor doesn't mean I get how all this scheduling, insurance, and all of that works. I don't have some doctor cheat code that helps me find appointments. Actually, my dad and I dealt with this together. We're both family medicine doctors, and he recently ran into a health problem of his own. We tried to find someone to take a look at him, but ran into the same problems you do. Confusing websites, endless voicemails, the works. So we tried ZacDoc and actually found the right person. They specialized in exactly what my dad needed, were close to where he lives, and they even had openings for new patients. My favorite part? You could see the doctor's actual appointment openings. Choose a time that works for you and click to instantly book a visit. So stop putting off those appointments. Go to ZacDoc.com/Dr. Mike. Also, link down below in the description to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. All right, let's get back to the show. I went on a night out with my friends. Everything was normal. The next day, I woke up with tingly legs, like pins and needles. About half an hour later, I was in my ex-partner's car with my friends. As I went to pull my seat forward, the left side of my face dropped. And I wet myself. Oh, is she having a stroke? Because she's losing control of her bowel and bladder. Although no, this is it could be Catinus syndrome. I cried and screamed. I couldn't move my legs at all. Like I couldn't even move my toes or anything. Codia quinina, I think, literally means the end of a horsetail, because the end of your spinal cord kind of looks like a horsetail. And when there's incredible impingement or pressure or damage to that area, you actually lose sensation to the lower parts of your body. You lose muscular control of your bowels and bladder. So this would right away need evaluation for that. They ended up calling an ambulance. So I got rushed to hospital. Also could be multiple sclerosis. I mean, like the differential diagnosis here is still broad. Thinking she may have been spiked, they carried out blood and urine tests, but there were no traces of drugs in her system. And I'm assuming they did imaging. Usually, in order to make a diagnosis of MS, it would require MRIs of the brain and spinal cord. Mary Jade was kept under close observation until doctors diagnosed her with functional neurological disorder, or FND. It causes me paralysis, blindness, I have seizures. These are a whole lot of other symptoms that have been presented that I was not ready for. I use catheters to go to the toilet because my bladder goes into retention. I also get incontinence and many other symptoms. Yeah, so FND is a very complex condition in that a lot of tests that we do, both imaging, blood, etc., will come up normal. It requires a very experienced neurologist in the condition to make this diagnosis appropriately based on some specific clinical signs, the symptoms that a patient experiences, the timing of the condition, and it's a functional issue in that there's nothing actually wrong anatomically. Or chemically even. It's simply that the neurologic system is malfunctioning. Mary Jade suffers from functional seizures, which can present as uncontrollable blackouts, collapsing, and twitching. These episodes can be life-threatening due to injuries from falling or choking on excessive saliva and vomit. That's so scary. Imagine like you just have no control over when a condition happens, no true understanding of why the condition is happening. It's got to be incredibly frustrating. So we know the condition is very rare. The question is, did you know it was possible before learning of your diagnosis? What does that mean? Mom, I can't believe they got one on camera. Look how intense that is. She has medication bans that say her condition, which is important. But we also don't take it as fact at times because that's not an official line of medical communication. After the trauma of the seizure, Mary Jade will need help to recover. All I can do is help her when she's having a seizure, but I don't know how to stop it. I don't know how to prevent it. Mary Jade can have up to 40 seizures a day. A lot of these seizures are treated not by medications, but by therapies like CBT and others. The cause of FND is unknown. For now, all Mary Jade can do is manage her life-changing symptoms. Yeah, the goal here is really to retrain the brain and body, and that's easier said than done. I have brilliant family and friends that really help look after me. And I'm also grateful for the fact that I didn't give up when so many times I wanted to. Yeah, I mean, it's very important to not give up. Work with a multidisciplinary team, occupational therapist, speech-language pathologist. I mean, you need an entire team to help you in a scenario like this. In Peachtree City, USA, Ashley Kerpiel is suffering from a very rare disorder, which is turning her muscles to bone. Oh, muscles to bone. So this is some kind of oification process, because what happens when you have injury, you do experience a little bit of fibrosis, calcium being deposited, but I think in a condition like this, you actually have new bone forming, where like the entire joint oofies. The connective tissue that normally makes a joint functional becomes bone. Basically, I'm kind of turning into a human statue in the sense the condition is called fibroisplasia ossificans progressiva, or FOP. I mean, that's really rare. I mean, hundreds of people globally. It affects roughly 800 people in the world, and Ashley is one of just 300 cases known in the United States. One of the more very problematic issues with a condition like this is intuitively you start thinking, oh, well, remove the excess bone surgically in order to give the person range of motion. But sometimes removing surgically that bone actually creates a hyper excessive bone growth because this turning of connective tissue into bone can happen spontaneously, or it can happen as a result to injury. So surgery can be that injury that actually triggers more bone formation. She was very healthy. She was sweet. She was an adorable baby girl. And we took her home. And it wasn't until she was about 2.5, almost 3 years old, when we noticed a lump come up on her back. This is a condition where this like gene editing that we frequently talk about would be a really great place to use it. We took her immediately to her pediatrician, and he couldn't quite understand what it was. He thought maybe some kind of tumor. It was very red and warm to the touch. I mean, if it was really red and warm to the touch, I would think abscess. That's first and foremost. I'm surprised they thought tumor. At 3 years old, Ashley was misdiagnosed with infantile myofibromatosis, and doctors amputated her arm. We were told she would be fine. We take her home at the end of the day, and then after 8 hours of operation, there was literally nothing left to save in her arms. So we were told it was just a decision that was made, and we weren't consulted as to that being a possibility even. Never mind that that was going to happen. That's a terrible way for that to happen. Not because it wouldn't have happened otherwise, but the fact that someone doesn't have full consent, informed consent, to know what the risks going into a procedure are, why the procedure needed to have happened. Was there other options, other avenues that they could have gone down? It's really unfortunate when patient autonomy is lost like this, because we practice by that principle, and we should continue practicing by that principle. Thanks for watching my video. Thanks for everyone